I had barely stepped out of the taxi when my stomach twisted. My belongings, my life, were scattered across the front yard like garbage someone couldn't be bothered to hide. Clothes folded by my own hands, boxes of old letters, the framed photo of my husband that I kept by my bedside every night, all of it thrown onto the patchy grass as if I were a stranger whose presence no longer mattered. For a moment, I stood frozen at the gate of the house I had worked 40 years to buy. The sun was setting, and the light fell cruelly on the mess before me. I was still wearing the same black dress from my sister's funeral. The fabric clung to my skin, still damp from the long flight and from tears that had dried hours ago. I wanted a warm shower, a soft blanket, a simple word of comfort from my son. Instead, I was greeted by silence, and by Danielle. She appeared in the doorway like the star of a show I had never agreed to attend. Her hair was styled, her makeup perfect, her new dress clearly expensive. She smiled, but her eyes were sharp. "Oh, you're back," she said in a voice dripping with sweetness she didn't feel. We decided to clear out some of the older things. They were taking too much space. Older things? My heart sank. She meant my things. I swallowed the tremor in my throat. "Danielle, those are my belongings. Why are they outside?" She waved a hand, dismissive, as if brushing away dust. "We're repurposing your room. I'm 3 months pregnant, didn't Robert tell you? We need space for the nursery." Pregnant. That word hit me harder than the grief I carried from Phoenix. My son hadn't even told me. And here I was, finding out while staring at my possessions piled like roadside trash. I tightened my grip on my purse. Where am I supposed to sleep? "Oh, come, I'll show you." She looped her arm through mine as though we were friends. Her touch was cold. She led me to the back of the house, to the tiny storage room I once used to keep tools and leftover paint buckets. When she opened the door, a sour smell wafted out. Inside sat a thin folding cot and a single dim bulb. "There," she said proudly. "It's small, but you'll manage. Just stay out of the way, we really need calm around the baby." For the first time in years, something inside me hardened. I looked her straight in the eyes, my voice steadier than I felt. "You're right," I said quietly. "Some things do need to be cleaned out." She didn't notice the shift in my tone. But soon, very soon, she would. Because what I discovered after stepping into that tiny room would change everything, and ignite a fight they never saw coming. The moment the door shut behind me, the weight of the day sank onto my shoulders like wet cement. The room Danielle had so generously prepared felt more like a forgotten corner of a basement than a place for a human being. The walls were stained with moisture, the thin mattress sagged in the middle, and a single dusty window overlooked the narrow alley behind the house. This wasn't a room, it was a message. They wanted me small. Silent. Invisible. I sat on the edge of the cot, the springs whining beneath me, and let myself breathe for the first time since I'd arrived. I pressed both hands to my face, trying to make sense of the cruelty I had just walked into. Hours ago, I had buried my sister, my last living sibling. I had touched her cold hand, whispered goodbye, and promised to take care of myself because she had always worried about me. Returning home was supposed to be a soft landing after a week of grief. Instead, I found myself trapped in a storage closet in the very house I bought with decades of aching knees and bleach-burned hands. Anger tightened in my chest, but another emotion crept in too, sadness. Crushing, heavy sadness. I thought of the nights I'd stayed late cleaning office buildings, dreaming of the day I could buy a peaceful home for my children. I thought of Robert as a little boy, running through these halls with mismatched socks and a grin that lit up the whole world. How had we ended up here? My breath trembled as I reached into my purse for my phone. If life had taught me anything, it was that you never cry without leaving a trail. I snapped photos of the room, the peeling paint, the broken light fixture. Then I stepped outside and photographed the pile of belongings still lying in the yard, my memories, discarded like leftovers. Evidence. Proof. No one would say I imagined this. Hours passed. I waited for Robert to come home, hoping desperately that he would knock on my door, apologize, explain everything. Midnight came and went. The house was quiet except for Danielle's laugh echoing through the hallway. Still, no knock. Finally, unable to bear the silence, I walked to their bedroom and tapped gently. "Robert. I need to talk to you." He cracked the door open just enough for his face to appear. He looked worn, dark circles, tired eyes, but the worst part was the way he avoided my gaze. "Mom, it's really late. We'll talk tomorrow." "Tomorrow. Always tomorrow. Did you know she threw out my things?" I whispered. He sighed. "Mom, please understand. Danielle is pregnant. We need space. You're making her anxious." I felt something shatter inside me, not loud, not dramatic, but final. My own son couldn't even meet my eyes while telling me I needed to understand. I walked back to the storage room, barely feeling my feet touch the cold floor. But once inside, I didn't cry. Not this time. Because something had shifted. A quiet fury was taking root, steady, controlled, inevitable. And the moment I opened that little notebook hidden in my drawer, I realized the truth was far worse than I imagined. What I discovered in those handwritten pages didn't just anger me, it gave me the weapon I needed to start fighting back. The old notebook lay exactly where I'd left it years ago, tucked inside a worn canvas pouch at the back of the utility drawer. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled it out, not because I feared what I'd find, but because some instinct deep inside me whispered that nothing in my world would look the same after tonight. I'd always kept careful records, receipts, repair costs, house maintenance notes. When you've spent most of your life working paycheck to paycheck, you learn to treat every dollar like a seed you can't afford to waste. After giving Robert verbal permission to live in the house, I'd kept the habit of documenting everything. Not out of mistrust, but out of routine. Out of responsibility. I opened the notebook to the first page and began flipping forward. At first it was familiar territory, roof patching, repainting, new pipes. But as I reached the months when my sister fell ill and I traveled back and forth to Phoenix, the entries stopped. In their place, I found something else entirely, bank statements and withdrawal receipts I didn't recognize. My heart tightened as I scanned the figures. $4,000 in January. Over $5,000 in February. Nearly $6,000 in March, with no description. A week-long trip in April, booked to Miami. More withdrawals in May, June, July. And then August, $7,900 labeled simply as baby expenses. Baby expenses. Nearly $8,000. I added the numbers in my head, the totals stacking up like bricks on my chest. More than $40,000 gone in less than a year. And then I remembered something that made my blood run cold. The emergency savings account. The one I had built slowly, deliberately, over decades. Money from overtime hours. Money from the evenings I scrubbed commercial kitchens until my hands cracked. Money I had promised myself I'd use only if life ever cornered me with no escape. $60,000. That was my nest egg. With trembling fingers, I reached for the latest statement I'd tucked inside the notebook. I unfolded the paper, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Current balance, $8,954. The room tilted. I had to lower myself onto the cot to keep from collapsing. More than $50,000, money I had trusted Robert to protect, had vanished. Used without my approval, without my knowledge, while I had been hundreds of miles away helping my dying sister take her final breaths. The betrayal was sharp enough to take the air from my lungs. And yet, another thought crept in, quiet, cold, and steady: this is something I can prove. Photos, statements, dates, amounts, all carefully preserved, all undeniable. But I needed more than proof, I needed wisdom. And at that moment, there was only one person whose judgment I trusted enough to guide me through this storm. My neighbor, Lucy. I slipped into a robe, grabbed the notebook, and stepped out into the night. Her kitchen light glowed like a beacon against the darkness. And what she told me once I knocked on her door didn't just confirm my suspicions, it blew them wide open. Because the truth Lucy revealed was darker and deeper than anything I had uncovered on my own. Lucy opened her kitchen door before I even finished knocking. Her eyes widened the moment she saw my face, and without a word, she drew me inside. Her kitchen smelled of warm dough and fresh coffee, comforting scents that made my throat tighten unexpectedly. I hadn't realized how starved I was for something that felt like home. "Sit down, Carol," she said softly, guiding me to a chair. "You look pale." I wanted to hold myself together, but the moment I sat at her worn wooden table, the dam inside me cracked. Hot tears slipped down my cheeks, silent and stubborn. Lucy didn't speak. She simply placed a steaming mug in front of me and squeezed my hands with her own calloused ones. "Lucy," my voice broke. "I need to know if you've noticed anything strange at my house lately." She inhaled slowly, her expression tightening. "Honey, I didn't want to tell you while you were suffering with your sister, but yes. I've seen things." My stomach clenched. "What kinds of things?" Lucy hesitated, as though choosing her words carefully. "Your daughter-in-law, she goes out a lot. Shopping bags from the expensive mall stores, the kind you only look at if you've got money to burn. And the cars, she changes cars like they're shoes. Red one week, gray the next." My breath caught. Danielle, who had never worked a day since marrying Robert, parading luxury cars through our quiet street. With what money? "And Robert?" I whispered. Lucy's gaze softened. "That boy looks worn down. Leaves before dawn, returns long after dark. He's lost weight. His shoulders slump when he walks. He looks defeated." My heart twisted painfully. My sweet boy. What had his life become? But Lucy wasn't finished. "One more thing," she said quietly. "And I hoped it wasn't my place to say it, but it's important." I nodded, bracing myself. "A couple weeks ago, a truck stopped in front of your house. 2 men loaded up your old wooden furniture, the beautiful hand-carved ones from your mother's time. Danielle was outside supervising. I saw her count a stack of bills before the truck drove off. The mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. I clutched the edge of the table to steady myself. That furniture was my family's history. My grandmother had brought it across states, my mother had polished it lovingly every week, and I had raised my children around it. Danielle had sold it without hesitation. Without respect. Without asking. Suddenly, everything clicked, the missing money, the spending, the attitude, the dismissal, the way she had thrown my belongings onto the lawn. This wasn't neglect. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was erasure. They weren't just pushing me aside, they were attempting to erase my presence entirely. By the time I walked back to the house, dawn was breaking. Birds were chirping, the world felt new, but I wasn't the same woman who had arrived from Phoenix the day before. Because now I knew the truth. And truth is a powerful weapon. But the real turning point came when I discovered a legal detail Danielle and Robert never expected, one that shifted every ounce of power back into my hands. Sleep didn't come that night. I sat on the creaking cot in the storage room, the notebook open across my lap, the photographs of my belongings on the lawn scattered beside me. The betrayal burned in my chest like a fever, but beneath the hurt, something else stirred: clarity. Resolve. A hard, cold determination that I hadn't felt in years. If they wanted to erase me, they were about to learn I wasn't so easily swept aside. At sunrise, I gathered every document I'd been collecting through the night. Bank statements, photos, old receipts, even the folded deed to the house that I kept more out of sentiment than necessity. I didn't know yet what I would do with it, but it felt important, like a key I had forgotten I was holding. By 9 a.m., I stood outside my lawyer's office. I must have looked like a ghost, hair neatly pulled back, funeral dress pressed as best as I could manage, eyes stinging from lack of sleep. But my posture was straight. I wouldn't walk into this fight bowed. Mr. Mendez, my lawyer for years, opened the door with a look of alarm. "Carol, dear God. You look exhausted. What's happened?" I didn't waste a second. Once we were seated in his office surrounded by leather-bound books and certificates, I laid everything on his desk. My voice trembled at first, then steadied as I told him the whole story, from my sister's passing to the moment Danielle showed me the storage room. He didn't interrupt once. But with each detail, his expression grew darker. When I finished, he flipped open the house deed, adjusting his glasses. He read silently for a long moment. Then he looked up, eyes sharp with a kind of excitement I didn't expect. "Carol, did you know the property is still entirely in your name?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I gave Robert the house." "You gave him permission to live in it," he corrected firmly. "But a house isn't transferred through a handshake. The deed was never legally updated. There was no notarized transfer of ownership. Legally, you never gave the house away." I stared at him, stunned. "So the house is still mine?" "Completely and unquestionably yours." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. A wave of something almost like relief washed over me, but it was tinged with anger. They had treated me like an intruder in my own home. Mr. Mendez wasn't done. "As for the money," he continued, tapping the bank statements, "since the account is solely under your name, and the transfers weren't authorized, this could classify as misappropriation. If you wished, you could pursue legal action." I closed my eyes for a moment. I didn't want prison for my son. I wanted respect. Restitution. Accountability. "What are my options?" I asked. He folded his hands. "You can require them to either vacate the property or sign a formal lease with strict terms. And you can demand repayment of every dollar." For the first time since coming home from Phoenix, I felt powerful, steady, like I finally had ground beneath my feet again. "Prepare everything," I said. "I'm done being walked on." But I wasn't prepared for what happened next, because when Danielle and Robert saw the legal truth laid bare, their entire world began to crack open in front of me. When Robert and Danielle walked into Mr. Mendez's office the next morning, they carried themselves as though they were the wronged ones. Danielle's sunglasses covered half her face, either for dramatic effect or to hide swollen eyes. Robert looked anxious, his shoulders tense, his steps hesitant. I sat calmly beside my lawyer, hands folded in my lap, but inside, every nerve was alert. Mr. Mendez greeted them politely, then said, "Please sit. We have several matters to clarify." Danielle crossed her arms, tilting her head with irritation. "I still don't understand why we're here. This all seems unnecessary." Mr. Mendez didn't waste time. He placed a copy of the house deed on the table, turning it toward them. First issue, ownership. The property located at 247 Jacaranda Street is legally registered under one name, Mrs. Carol Rodriguez. No transfer of ownership was ever completed. Danielle's jaw dropped. "That can't be right. Robert told me." "What Robert said is irrelevant," Mr. Mendez replied coolly. "This is the legal document." Robert's face drained of color. I meant to finish the paperwork. But things got busy." Danielle whipped toward him so fast her sunglasses nearly flew off. "Busy? Busy? You told me we owned that house." Robert sunk into his chair, defeated. I thought we did. I didn't think it mattered. Danielle's voice sharpened to a shriek. Because you never finish anything, Robert. You promised me a house. You promised security. I watched silently. It hurt to see my son being torn apart, but he had built this moment with every choice he made. Mr. Mendez lifted a hand. Second issue, unauthorized withdrawals from Mrs. Carroll's bank account. He laid out the statements. Over $45,000 removed in the past 8 months. The account is in Carroll's name only. These withdrawals are legally questionable. Robert's voice trembled. I didn't spend all of it. Danielle. Don't you dare blame me, she hissed. You gave me the card. You told me to. Robert shot back. You said we needed things. You said my mother wouldn't miss it. I leaned forward, my voice steady. I didn't authorize $1 single. Danielle's face twisted. It was family money. What's yours is ours. No, I said sharply. It was my retirement. My safety net. And you spent it on vacations and designer clothes. Mr. Mendez cleared his throat. As of today, Mrs. Carroll is invoking her full rights as the legal owner. You will have 2 options, move out within 30 days, or sign a binding lease with monthly rent and repayment terms. Danielle exploded. What kind of mother does this? A mother who's done being disrespected, I answered. Choose. They looked at each other, Robert torn, Danielle furious. In the end, desperation won. They signed. But as we left the office, Danielle stopped in the doorway, her voice low and venomous. You'll regret this. All of it. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because I had no idea her words were more than empty threats, and that the next twist would shatter whatever remained of the fragile peace between us. I thought I had reclaimed control, but what happened just days later, starting with a knock at my door, would test my strength in a way I never expected. 3 days after the meeting with Mr. Mendez, I woke before sunrise with a strange tightness in my chest. At first, I thought it was sadness, the emotional weight of everything that had happened. But within minutes, the pressure sharpened, squeezing upward into my throat. My breath came in shallow spurts. The room felt too small, too dark, too airless. I tried to stand, but my legs buckled. A cold sweat broke across my skin. I reached for the wall to bang for help, but my arm wouldn't lift properly. The edges of my vision blurred. Help, I whispered, though I could barely hear my own voice. The next thing I remember was light, bright, sterile hospital light, above me. A machine beeped steadily at my side. My chest felt heavy, as though something inside it had cracked. A nurse appeared, relief washing over her face. Mrs. Carroll, you're awake. You're incredibly lucky. Your neighbor found you collapsed and called for help. You had a mild heart attack. A mild heart attack. The words landed like stones. I blinked, letting them sink in. Your children are here, the nurse added gently. 2 of them. My heart fluttered, not from fear, but from hope. 2 of my children. That meant Marianne and George. They had always been the steady pillars in my life. But the nurse's expression shifted slightly. She hesitated. Your son Robert was notified too, she said softly. He hasn't arrived. A familiar ache rose in my chest. Not the dangerous kind this time, just heartbreak, old and deep. Marianne and George rushed in moments later, their eyes red, their hands reaching for mine. Marianne's voice shook with anger and relief. George looked devastated, asking a dozen questions at once. How had this happened? Why hadn't I told them about the stress? Why had I endured everything alone? But before I could reassure them, the doctor entered. His tone was serious, firm, almost fatherly. This heart attack was caused by prolonged, severe emotional stress, he said bluntly. If the environment that caused it doesn't change, the next one will not be mild, and it may not be survivable. The room went still. What exactly is causing your stress, Mrs. Carroll? He asked gently. There was no point lying. No pretending. My situation with my oldest son, I whispered. The doctor nodded. Then you must remove yourself from that situation, completely, for at least 3 months. For your life to stabilize, your heart needs rest, not turmoil. Marianne squeezed my hand so tightly it almost hurt. Mom, you're coming with me. You're not going back there. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't resist. I agreed. 2 days later, I left the hospital and moved into a small apartment I rented using the income from my father's old property, something I'd quietly maintained for years. Marianne stayed with me while I recovered. George checked in constantly. Robert said nothing. Not a call. Not a visit. But then, one morning, Mr. Mendez phoned. Carol, your son Robert made the first payment. And he asked if you'd be open to speaking with him. My throat tightened. I wasn't ready, not yet. But healing isn't a straight line. It's a path you take step by step. Weeks passed. My strength returned. My plants grew in the sunlight near the window. I rediscovered quiet mornings, long walks, laughter with my other children. Then, one afternoon, loud knocking echoed through my small apartment. Mom, Robert's voice called, trembling, raw. Please. I need to talk to you. I hesitated at the door, feeling both fear and love collide inside me. I wasn't sure what I would say. I wasn't sure if forgiveness was ready in my heart. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This time, whatever happened next, would happen on my terms.